right there. Pressure up. Gates down. Let's go racing. Yeah, welcome back to SMX Insider. There is a weekend off for both our show with the Jasons, Weigandt and Thomas, and also a weekend off for the SuperMotocross World Championship, much needed after 4 Pro Motocross rounds. But JT, back to what I call the most unique track of the season at Southwick, the somewhat sand, but the riders will tell you, not as sandy as it looks, track in New England. It's small, it's tight, the atmosphere is different than other events. But normally that means the preview for the race is outlined by talking about Southwick and who's good in sand. I'm not sure the way these guys are performing this year that it matters what track we go to anymore.
It probably won't. Last year, I was the one posing questions about whether Hayden Degan could or couldn't solve the sand issue and really step up to the plate, and he did exactly that. So I'm staying far away from that narrative in 2025 because I do believe he's proven himself. And then you look at the 450 class, I think all of these guys, especially at the very front, are very capable in the sand. So it will likely be more of the same. And Weege, I'll pose the question to you. Is the fact that we really can't find a way for holes to be poked in both Jett Lawrence's and Hayden Degan's championship aspirations at the most unique race of the series, does that tell the tale in and of itself that we can't find a way for these guys maybe to be taken off that mantle?
Yeah, absolutely. We are masters of bench racing our way through different scenarios. And then even as much as we do that, something like the Salt Lake City Supercross pops up in scenarios we didn't imagine happen. So even with the scenarios we can think about and we still can't think about one that seems like it would derail these, with one caveat. I guess the one thing, JT, Eli Tomac, haven't seen him at Southwick the last couple years. He's good at this track. He's good on sand. We know Jett will be good on sand. We know Jett will be good at Southwick. Can maybe Tomac elevate?
I think he can, and it really comes down to one simple thing. If you consider yourself to be the guy that's going to go win the championship, and I think Eli Tomac still does. You know, we're 4 rounds in, he's 28 points down, but I still think he's in that mindset. If you don't win the races where you know these are your best type tracks, and I would say Hangtown was one, you got a moto win there. I would say that Southwick is one, and I would certainly say that Washougal is one. If you can't get the points going in your direction at that type of round, what possibility do you have? How are you ever going to hope to get the job done if you can't make it happen when the odds may be, I can't even say for sure, may be in your favor?
Okay, so that's it. We can't expect to see valleys within the peaks of what Jett Lawrence and Hayden Degan are doing, but maybe other guys will hit a peak on this unique track, and maybe Eli Tomac will be one of them. We will be previewing Southwick throughout this episode of the show. It's always fun to go there, but because we move forward so quickly, it's almost like we've forgotten that, by the way, Jett Lawrence is still within the window of might not even be racing right now, considering he had ACL surgery back in the wintertime. Instead, he's back and he's 4-0 in overalls. And when you hear Jett and these riders come back from injury quickly and perform, they're always thanking this guy, Doc G, on the podium and in their interviews with you. So this week, for the big interview, we're actually going to talk to Doc G and learn about the man behind the scenes that makes so much of this work for the athletes. Big interview time. This fellow, you've probably heard his name get mentioned quite a bit on the podium when the riders say big thanks, maybe even big thanks to Doc G, Dr. H. Rey Gubernick. We never hear your full name.
No, I didn't.
In
fact, you just told me what my name was.
Okay, it's been that long. You're helping the riders, I would essentially say, feel good enough to go out there when they have bumps and bruises. Is that a good layman's term?
That's a great thing. You know, the easiest way to say is, you know, each rider has their own mechanic for their bike. I'm kind of their body mechanic, and just kind of make sure that the bike, their body is working at optimum. You know, it's the same thing. You know, bumps, bruises, fractures, it doesn't really matter. It's the whole idea is trying to get them back onto the bike as soon as they can so that, you know, they can battle for that championship.
Yeah, so it's super interesting, and you know, I raced a long time, so I kind of have some insight to it, but I think for the average people at home, they don't realize how sometimes injured these riders are. And the series rolls on week to week, and a lot of the time,
most people would not even consider them able to race, yet there they are. And I'll go back to Hunter Lawrence 2023, that crash at Redbud, and I saw him every single week, every single day on your table, trying to find a way to get out there. So can you just tell us a little bit about through the years? You don't have to get into specifics, but times where guys like this doesn't even make sense that they could physically perform, yet there they are out there.
I mean, I'll put you on there too, JT. You know, and anybody who's been involved with the sport whatsoever, these are the gnarliest guys around. I mean, the things that they go through, not just on Saturdays, but through the week. That's what it's just so phenomenal to think. They're doing 30-minute motos, two days a week, and their bumps, bruises, they crash during the week, and nobody ever gets to see that side of it. But you know, going back to your question with Hunter, you know, he's battling the rib thing, and we get him just good enough to where he can race, battle, and then we're starting all over again. And then he has to practice during the week. So it's this balance of how much do you ride, how much do you not, how much treatment do you get. It's a constant battle, and it's just I marvel at these guys and their toughness and their ability to just put aside pain and get their job done.
What people might not realize is you're not just here at the track. You have your practice out there in Southern California, and it's kind of a who's who celebrity motocross, supercross stars rolling through all week long.
I'm very lucky, and it is pretty cool. You know, we have a couple of amateur kids starting to come in now, and you know, can you imagine walking in and you're getting treatment with your ACL or you know, you broke your collarbone, and you look over and on the table next to you is Jett Lawrence or whoever it might be. So it is part of the deal that these guys have when they sign up with me is that they get treatment during the week as well. So during those months where people are the racers are here in California, they take advantage of that. So like JT was saying, during the week, they live in my office pretty much every day. They'll go and ride, they come back to the office, and they get their treatment, whatever it might be, to whatever body part. And then they're back out on Saturday. I fly out here, and we take care of anything that happens during the week and also on the weekend.
This is awesome. Honestly, thanks for coming on the show, but also really a thanks for – there's a lot of athletes we wouldn't get out here racing and battling if it wasn't for the work you did behind the scenes. So honestly, it's good for everyone, not just them, that they're out here.
Thank you. You know, the sport is better when we see everybody out there. That
Right.
was one of the difficult things this year is we had so many, in Supercross, we had so many riders that were injured, and it's just not the same for the fans. And so my job was a little busier in the off season and preparing for motocross. But the reality is we all deserve to have everybody at their best to see who really is the champion. And if I can help out in any way, that's my job, and I love it.
Yeah, hey, we're glad he's still doing it. Started at 11 years old, so still young, going to be in it for a while. Doc G, everybody.
Thanks for having me on the show, guys.
All right, we thank Dr. G for that time. Now we move towards Southwick. We'll preview this episode right here. We'll give you all the insights of what has happened to the weekend off for both the 450 and the 250 class. We'll talk about some MXGP folks from Europe coming over for the weekend at Southwick, although maybe not the ones that you're thinking of. And the usuals, Clinton Fowler will be giving us stats. He and James Stewart will show you where the smart money is with the inside line. And we'll talk the ACL injury again for Chanceheimus with Dr. Joe McGinley and more, all coming up as we preview Southwick. Okay, 30-second board, hot topics in the sport. Now, it's difficult, JT, you go to Southwick, and the temptation is to talk about sand in the same way, say, when it's raining at the Foxborough Supercross and we know it's going to be a mud race an hour before the gates drop, we want to talk about mud races. But I feel like every year we do this for Southwick, and then the riders say, it's deceptive. It's not really sand. It doesn't feel like sand. It looks like sand. It's hard base underneath. Where are we with the sand at Southwick situation?
Well, I think it's a good topic because, like so many things in life, there's nuance to it. And yes, it is a sand race, but is it sand like you would see in MXGP, like Lommel, that maybe Jorge Praau would be used to? No, it's not. It has a harder base to it. The bumps form a little bit differently. When I say that, it's more of like a sharper bump versus the big, huge rolling bumps that you would see at some of the legendary sand tracks around the world. And that's, I would say, progressively gotten a harder base over the years. Now, credit to the Wick crew, and you think about who that is, it's the likes of John Dowd, Keith Johnson, even Doug Henry jumps in there and helps out. They brought in a lot of sand to try to restore the softer, rolling beach type sand that it had from years ago. Now, last year we had a ton of rain, washed that out. We're going to get a little bit of rain this year too, but they're making efforts to make it more of the traditional sand track and less of the harder base that it's turned into as of late. I mean, if we're talking about sand, it is the closest thing we have to a deep sand race on the circuit, and it does reflect that sometimes in the results.
Gotcha. Okay, it's still a sand race, but those nuances have also led to Southwick back in the day just having these legendary rides by locals, nearly winning motos, nearly getting podiums. It's happening less and less as time goes on. But this is a cool story for the second year in a row. The legendary Tony LaRusso, who is over 50 years old and in his prime used to be one of those guys that would mess with the factory riders at the front, is going to try to qualify again. And we just missed it last year. He's going to race a 450 this year because 450s will race first. And JT, I imagine he knows he wants to be in that B practice when the track is fresh and try to make it in on time.
Well, you think about a guy like Tony LaRusso, he led this race in the 125 class for a good 25 minutes in the year 1996. So the amount of laps collectively that he has put in at this racetrack, incalculable. Maybe Quentin Fowler could round about it, but it's a huge number. And I went back and looked because I was so fed up with getting beat by guys I'd never heard of at this race that I went back and like, okay, how much are these guys riding? Back in the day when NESC was kind of at its pinnacle, they were racing here 16 times a year. And then you start adding up year over year over year. These guys are true experts when it comes to this racetrack. And a guy like Tony LaRusso, he can tell you where every bump's going to form a week before. You say at the 22-minute mark of the second moto, what's going to be the best line in this corner? He could tell you because he has that muscle memory and he's seen every possible scenario of this race shape up. So it's going to be fun to watch him. Hopefully he can qualify for these motos because it's going to be a fantastic story to see a guy at his age be out there racing against the world's best.
Yeah, and then we'll see which one of the current generation of New England locals that NESC series can perform as well. This is their favorite track. This is Southwick. Give us a preview, JT.
Well, again, this track has been so similar, and there have been some changes. We don't go down in the frog's pond like we used to 30 years ago, but if you went back to those times and you fast forwarded now, it would look very, very similar. And the key to Southwick is carrying momentum, as it's always been. You really can't stop and go because it's too difficult to get back up to speed. That rear tire just wants to dig in. And once you get up to speed, you kind of float around the racetrack and you stay on top of the sand. That's what you're going to watch these guys do. These big, fast, sweeping corners, they're going to keep the front end really light and carry speed all the way through them and try to avoid stopping or slowing down at all costs. And watch for the experts, watch for the guys you always see do well at this racetrack and the way that they will, above all else, try to slow down. Though if they have to go all the way around the outside, no problem. But what they don't want to do is really touch the brakes. And that's rule number one. And what you always have to remember about Southwick, it may not be the shortest distance, which we talk about a lot. It is going to be where can you carry the most speed around this racetrack. That's how you go fast at the Wick.
Perfect transition, JT. To the next topic, let's review where the 250 class stands right now after 4 races and a weekend off. Hayden Degan already has a near historically big point lead, and we'll get into that later with Clinton Fowler and SMX Facts. But even beyond that, the one rider who's been able to beat him this year is now out, that's Chanceheimus. And we'll talk about that with Dr. Joe McGinley later. But I would imagine this just makes the margin a little bit bigger for Deegan now.
Yeah, and I think for Hayden, he has reached a point now where he's kind of looking around and there's really no one left to fear. And he certainly understands that if Levi Kitchen has a fantastic day, he can get in there. And Joe Shimoda's really strong early on. But truly striking fear or worry into him, I just don't see it anymore. I think he has the largest lead of anybody to this point. Like, I think that's where Hayden Degan is ascending to. And now he's got to start looking around and going, okay, what challenges are left? What records can I go break? Because I think he truly is looking around saying, I'm the best guy by a long ways in this class. And it might be a long summer for the other 39 guys each weekend.
Now, what's interesting about this Deegan conversation is we go back to right where we were at the start of the show, where normally we take out a lot of what we've already learned and consider Southwick to be its own unique event. We're not quite saying that as much this time, but we gave Eli Tomac a nod as a great sand rider at the top of the show. What about Tom Viel? Has the experience with those incredibly tough sand tracks in Europe, won this race 2 years ago. Is that we'll see a better Viel this weekend, and what could that mean type of question here?
I mean, I think we could see a better Tom Viel, but remember, he's French-born. Sand is not like his given talent, right? He's certainly improved in it. He did win here 2 years ago, but when you really look at it on a relative basis, he hasn't been anywhere near the front. You know, that opening round, we thought that was like a great start, gets third at the opener, like, okay, he'll get better from here. And it's been regression. I don't think he's even really seen Hayden Degan as of late. So for me to think he's going to jump up and battle with Hayden from how far back he's been, that's a big stretch to make. You got to be optimistic if you're him. You have to think about how this can go. But being real, he hasn't been anywhere near Hayden Degan's level for weeks on end now.
Let's go to the 450s now. So, yeah, it's the same story we talk about every week. Jett Lawrence still winning all the overalls. He somehow pulled the rabbit out of the hat to win that crazy second moto, the overall through that crazy second moto at High Point. And we talked about him versus Tomac. That'll be a thrill if they get to battle. What about this other group? It's shocking. The same 5 riders have been the top 5 overall in every race this year. And we got to keep giving the nod to how well Hunter Lawrence, Aaron Plessinger, and Justin Cooper are riding. I don't know if they're going to win this weekend, but they've been great.
They have been great. And I think they keep taking turns of who's stealing the conversation a little bit. You know, I think it was Justin Cooper and AP. Both were that guy at Thunder Valley. We saw speed from both of them. We thought AP might win a moto there. Then Hunter really asserted himself at High Point, which we thought he might. That's been a very good racetrack to him in the past. He was so close to winning the overall there. And then we have this other conversation of the SMX World Championship points that are getting ever closer. And those two, both AP and Justin Cooper, just seem like they're chasing Cooper Webb down in that scenario. So there's a lot of different storylines that are all kind of converging. That podium spot, and maybe it's not even fair to say it's the third podium spot because it's not like Eli owns that second spot, but it really feels like the third podium spot is up for grabs each and every weekend between AP, Justin Cooper, and Hunter. Who's going to get it? Who can kind of become that mainstay there? And how quickly also can they close down the points gap to Cooper Webb and maybe go into Concord, North Carolina as your points leader?
Yeah, we mentioned that a few weeks ago, but it's still crazy to think of a Justin Cooper or Aaron Plessinger #1 seed and having some bonus points on their side to help them win that SMX World Championship. There's one other rider to talk about here, but it's crazy that we're this deep into the show before we're even mentioning this guy at this point, but that's how it's turned out. And that's Jorge Praau, who we all knew might have a small bit of a struggle adapting to American tracks and a different team and coming off injury, but no one expected it to be like this. Like, now not even getting top 10s or top 20s in motos. So what I heard, he went back to Club MX to do more testing in Eastern type conditions and some sand, and they're working so hard. I have some friends who are down there. I got a text at 6:47 p.m. on Friday saying he's still riding. Now, JT, you've been on your own program and been around program of championship level guys. That's not normal for a weekend off, right? Sometimes you're headed to the lake, even if you're struggling. So that's a real indicator of how hard they're working to me. That's not normal, right?
It's definitely not normal, but if you kind of look at the situation, I think it's the appropriate course of action. Their backs are up against the wall here. And I've asked everybody that I know, people that know him personally, people that have worked with him in Europe, Paul Malin, who is on the broadcast team in Europe, everybody that's literally watched him since he came onto the scene 10 years ago, in the EMX classes. Hey, what's happening here? Because they've watched every race he has lapped in the interim. Literally every single time he's hit a racetrack, these guys have watched him on the dirt bike, and they cannot understand what's happening. They're like, I've never seen this guy look this way. So I think everybody collectively is scratching their heads. And I would say Jorge Praau has been standing in a mirror, scratching his head, going, what is going on here? And the only way you're ever going to dig yourself out of that hole is to grab a shovel and start digging. And that's what you're talking about. Friday evening at 6:47 p.m., they're digging, trying to find answers. So kudos to them, right? Because it'd be very easy to just shrug your shoulders and wallow in self-pity. That's not what they're doing at all. They're trying to find answers. They're trying, whether it's Jorge, his form, whether it's him gelling with the motorcycle, regardless, it's probably all of those things combined. But the simple fact is, he needs to be better. And the only way for him to be better is for them collectively as a team to work together in a more positive way. And I like to see the effort put in to try to get exactly what we're talking about.
Let's talk to two people who definitely have some opinions and facts of their own. It's time for the Inside Line. Clinton Fowler and James Stewart telling you where to place your money for the weekend.
Thanks, Jason. All right, Clinton, let's give the people some inside line tips on the Insider Show. Let's break down the podium odds for them. What do we got?
Yeah, we got some interesting ones here for that third spot, I think, James. So you got Jett Lawrence at a minus 1,900 paying out $21. As you've said, money market type bet when it comes to Jett Lawrence winning or hitting the podium. Eli Tomac minus 300 paying out $26. And then the three that get really interesting for the podium, Aaron Plessinger, minus 110 paying out $38. You got Hunter Lawrence, a plus 105 paying out $41 on a $20 bet. And the last one, Justin Cooper, a plus 108, paying out just over $41. James, it feels like those last three, Aaron Plessinger, Hunter Lawrence, and Justin Cooper, it feels like it's Southwick. They're fighting for the final spot on the podium, given how good Jett Lawrence and Eli Tomac are saying. But what do you think?
Yeah, Clinton, I'm with you. It kind of feels like Eli Tomac, Jett Lawrence, they're going to be on top of the box 1 and 2 in whatever order that is. But yeah, those three. All right. I'm going to lean towards Hunter Lawrence. Why? Because of what happened last weekend. Now, I will say this. Aaron has been strong all year long. Justin Cooper has been getting stronger all year long. But when you look at us riders, we only remember what we remember. And all I remember is what happened last weekend. And Hunter Lawrence, if I'm him, I'm a lightning strike away from being my first overall victory, even over my brother. So I'm going to carry that momentum into the sand where I know I'm pretty good too. We talk about Jett Lawrence and how good he is, but I'm pretty good in the sand. Aaron Plessinger, yeah, there's some trees at Southwick, but not a lot of ruts. So look, I think I can get him covered. Justin Cooper, we know how he likes to ride. He likes to be real smooth and all that. And even if he gets out front, he tries to run away. But Southwick, as Matt Walker would say, it's a man's track. What's man's track? And these guys will wear down. So I think eventually it kind of balances itself out. So I'm going towards Hunter Lawrence because of what we just saw a couple weekends ago. And he's pretty good in the sand. But that being said, you could easily have Justin Cooper, Aaron Plessinger on there. But I'm going towards the Honda boys. I'm going towards the Honda sandwich with a Yamaha feeling. That's kind of what I got. So Hunter Lawrence, there it is.
Feels reasonable, James. He did podium here last year, so there you go. Hey, guys, make sure you go check out your local sports book. The lines will change as you put your money down, and so you're going to want to find out what the latest odds are. And there you have it, James.
Yep. Back to you, Jay.
All right, big thanks to Stu and Clinton for coming on the show. You can watch their show on YouTube, The Inside Line with James Stewart, the number 7. That is the YouTube channel you'll look for, or just type The Inside Line with James Stewart into the search bar. That's what I did. And you'll find a larger version of the preview for every weekend. And it's always good to have bench racing with Stu, for sure. I mean, I get to do it every weekend. I shouldn't tell people this, but I'd probably pay to do that. But instead, it's the opposite way. Okay, so speaking of James, your wig was blown back at High Point. We mentioned your old friend, Chad Reed, was a nominee and now is in to the AMA Hall of Fame. He has won the vote. He will be inducted in the fall. James said, my good buddy. Shows how much times can change. But anyway, a big congrats to Chad for getting in.
Yeah, and thankfully Chad got in. I don't have to do anything drastic. I don't have to go crazy on a show like this wondering why he didn't get in. But I would say James Stewart saying my boy Chad Reed on national television is the shock of 2025. There are many things in this world that I thought were conceivable. Like something, maybe one day, yeah, we'll have flying cars, maybe Weege would buy something expensive. There are things that I was willing to wrap my head around being conceivably, even as unlikely as it may seem possible, this was not there. But time heals all things, and I think they both recognize and respect the level that each of them were racing and the levels they pushed themselves to. And fittingly with that, Chad Reed is in the Hall of Fame because he's one of the only racers along with Ricky Carmichael, that could match James Stewart on a talent level, speed level, and winning level. And to me, it was a huge no-brainer that Chad Reed would be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
A rider that is probably lesser known here is on the entry list for Southwick. I was hoping that meant that Jeffrey Hurlings, who's back to going fast, but is not in title contention this year overseas because he missed the beginning of the year with an ACL injury. I was hoping he was going to race. I guess he's not. But Cornelius Tandle is on the list. Tell us about this guy.
Yeah, so Cornelius is Norwegian, and he's had a fantastic EMX career. Currently has moved up, racing MXGP. It's a really, really tough step to make. Results haven't been fantastic here in 2025, but I think he could surprise some people because especially if he gets into that B practice, which we talked about Tony LaRusso in, get out there, rip around on a smooth track. I don't want to make any rash predictions here, but I do think he's going to qualify inside the top 10. There are going to be a lot of shocked people when they tune in to the broadcast this weekend because they're going to not know who that is. But this kid can ride. He's had a lot of success. He's just a little bit off the radar, but it's just another name that the American fans are going to learn and wonder about. And yeah, I love just the uniqueness of this, adding more variety to the series, and collectively combining both of these series when the opportunity presents itself. You think about what Motocross of Nations is going to be. Tundell will probably be on that team. Yeah, it's just a lot of fun to have a new name out there.
Also, probably a surprise to some of the Southwick fans, the Grand Marshal, he will be there live and in person this weekend. None other than Tony Corolli, the 9-time MXGP champion. Now, Tony's not racing. I would love that. But he will race at Redbud and I believe Spring Creek as well. He's part of the Ducati program. He raced MXGP over the weekend at Matterley Basin in England. So he's coming over to work with Factory Connection, which is New England-based, and they'll be working the suspension for the Ducati factory team next year. But Tony will be not racing, but on hand as the Grand Marshal this weekend, JT.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. Corolli is a living legend. And for him at 39 years old, I think he is, to get 7th in the MXGP round last weekend shows he's still competitive. So is he going to, be on the podium at Redbud? No, but he's a great starter. He adds a lot to the series, and just bringing these guys over at whatever stage of their career is an awesome thing.
One more topic, not a good one though. This is a rider who won't be at Southwick. Chanceheimus is hurt again.
Yeah, this is a bummer, Weege. For Chanceheimus, it just seems like this is a broken record with him. Every single time he gets some momentum and gets things going, he has this type of injury. And remember, 2 years ago at High Point, he had this breakout ride. He's leading laps. I think he gets 4th in the moto. What happens? The Tuesday after the round, he tears his ACL. So this was like deja vu. It just happened 48 hours prior in the midst of another really good race. So he will come back from this. His Instagram post was really optimistic, but you have to know the depths of despair he was feeling on Saturday night and Sunday. Him sitting there on the table crying, and Jett coming over and wrapping his arm around him. This is a big emotional blow to him. And the therapy and the work to get back to where he was, as everybody else gets to keep racing and improving in the story of his career. This is a really dark day for him, and it's just a bummer. Like there's no real silver lining to it. It's just a really tough thing that our sport just kind of lays on heavy for some of these guys.
Now, onto the actual data on the medical side. Let's bring in Dr. Joe and the SMX Medical update. And here's Dr. Joe McGinley. First of all, thanks for coming to the races, as always, with the McGinley Privateer Support Program. Appreciate you keeping those guys on the road. Unfortunately, here we're going to visit a topic we've mentioned multiple times on this show and multiple times with this very rider. The bad news about Chanceheimus out now with a torn ACL on his other leg, Dr. Joe.
That's correct. He posted a video on his Instagram account and basically went through it. And, it's hard not to just feel bad for this kid. Listen, he missed Motocross of Nations last year when he tore the ACL in his left knee, came back fully recovered, ended up just, killing it at Thunder Valley, won both motos, looked great, and then tears that right ACL. Fortunately, this is the first time on that right knee, but he's going to be out for the rest of the season.
When do you think, if he was your patient, when do you think he would be able to start riding again, because thinking about 2026, this might be the first chance he's had in a very long time to come into any championship 100% prepared and healthy.
Yeah, you're still only talking 6-7 months right before round one of the 2026 Supercross season. So we're not really that far out, but it's a little bit better than what he's been dealing with in the past. So he'll have a little bit more time to recover from all these injuries, but it's still close. I mean, he'll have to get back on the bike and start training by the fall and early winter to be able to be ready for round one of Supercross. And, that's going to put some wear and tear on it, but it's more than what he's had in the past. So hopefully he's coming back healthy, fully ready to ride. Imagine how good he's going to do when he's back and fully healthy. I mean, this kid's impressive. He just has terrible luck.
So that's good news, at least, where there isn't much for Chanceheimus. So thanks for the info, as always, Dr. Joe. Okay, you're running out of time here. There's a shirt that debuted for the Pro Motocross side of the St. Jude Love Moto Stop Cancer campaign. We mentioned it's very patriotic, so we were subtly hinting this would be a great one to wear at Redbud, but Redbud's coming up quickly. So right now, text 785-833, the word super, to that number. That's, again, I'm going to read it right here, 785-833. Text the word super, donate, and get the patriotic version of the Love Moto Stop Cancer shirt. Maybe you can show it up at Redbud or Spring Creek or any race. They're taking place in America, so it's still fitting. JT, we're talking so much about Pro Motocross, but within that you hinted about Plessinger, Justin Cooper making a bid toward Cooper Webb in the SMX standings. So let's remind everyone that it all builds to the crescendo of that. Kind of like the NBA Finals heartbreak game that I watched last night. It starts September 6th. That is Charlotte's ZMAX Dragway, Charlotte Motor Speedway Complex. St. Louis, the Dome. Right after that on the 13th of September. And then September 20th is the World Championship in Vegas. The unique format, I think, is something we need to remind everybody of here, JT. 2 days format for fans at North Carolina and Vegas, not St. Louis. It'll be a one-day format with the fans there. But the riders get to ride on Friday at every race, and there'll be a press conference on Friday every race. A little bit different feel already right there.
It is, and I can't believe we're creeping ever so close back to these playoff rounds and the finale in Vegas. But this has honestly been one of the best things to happen to the sport in a long time. You think about the changes that it's made. Riders have all responded to it. I think there are a lot of people just unsure how this was all going to go. When you think about October of 2022 when this was all announced, well, we're going to be 3 years removed from that, not too far. And this has been a resounding success. I think just you think about Hayden Degan might have a chance at 3 times winning this thing. Of course, Jett Lawrence is thinking about it. Eli Tomac made a run at it. But overall, we've moved from different cities, right? We've had one consistent one in North Carolina. Other two have moved around a little bit. But I think this has been a home run, and it's really hard to find any downside with it. And kudos to Fowler, the Feld Entertainment team, for coming up with this point system that is absolutely delivered each and every time. We're coming down to championships being decided on the last lap in Las Vegas. That's a really hard thing to do, yet here we are.
Time for SMX Facts. We bring Clinton Fowler on. We've kind of teased this throughout this episode of the show. Clinton, some of the things we're going to talk about, like the rapid ascension of Jett Lawrence up the all-time win charts. He's still a baby in this class in some ways. Where does he stand at the moment?
Yeah, Weege. I mean, he's only 3 years into his premier class career, and he sits 10th all-time already. He has 19 of 20 wins, and he's on the cusp of tying Jeff Stanton and James Stewart with 20 wins in 8th all-time, which is just absolutely incredible considering how little time he's been in. And he could, if he wins in Southwick, be 20 wins and 21 starts. The amazing part, JT, this would be 3 times as fast as Stewart got there and 5 times as fast as Jeff Stanton got there. Those guys had 66 starts and 94 starts. JT, what's keeping, is there anything that's going to keep Jett Lawrence from winning in Southwick this weekend?
Well, I think the number 3 of Eli Tomac would raise his hand and say, I can stop him from doing it. But when you look at it on a big picture scale and you don't take the what could happen type thing, it feels like he's going to keep on winning, because as much as we want to say everybody has a shot and AP's challenging him and Tomac's winning motos, at the end of the day, when we're all driving home or people, turn off Peacock, the result seems to be the same.
That is true, and that's true for both classes. I was talking to my teenage daughter this week. The term that the kids use is end game, and I think the inevitable end game here is Deegan versus Jett at some point on a 450, because Deegan's vanquishing his 250 competitors, honestly, with larger margins than even Jett is doing in the 450 class. So maybe what could stop Jett? That could be Deegan. Maybe next year. Give me some stats showing how dominant Deegan has been.
Yeah, the absolutely incredible part, obviously we see Deegan out there winning 6 of 8 motos and 3 of 4 overalls, and you see the domination. But his 42-point lead is the 4th biggest lead in the history of the sport through 4 rounds. So it is all-time level domination that we're seeing. The guys that beat him, you just look at it, they're historic seasons. 1981, Mark Barnett won the first 8 motos. 2004, our own James Stewart won all 8 motos to start. And then Brock Glover, the man over at Dunlop, he won 7 of 8 back in 1979. So there's only 3 times where we've seen people have more dominant starts to their career, or excuse me, to their season in the small bike class. And JT, again, I asked the same question. We're going to Southwick. Last year, he went 1-2 for first overall here. Obviously a great day. What keeps him from doing the same thing and winning again this weekend?
Absolutely nothing, in my opinion. He is the class of this 250 field. And I think really the next stepping stone for him, we'll see how Monster Energy Supercross goes, but it's going to be 450 Pro Motocross. That is going to be the next true and real test in the story of Hayden Degan. And I don't know how that goes. That's why we all tune in on Saturdays, is to get answers to those questions. But there's a real possibility here where injury is really the only thing that stops both Jett and Hayden before they show down next summer.
I just hope by the time they get there, not only are they healthy, but you got to keep Tomac in the game. He appears to not be going anywhere. He wants to keep racing. You got to get Chase Sexton back. Jorge Praau, we know he has the talent to do this. Got to ramp it up. We hype every season, but that might be even crazier if all these things can come together. Because, yeah, right now, love it or not, these two are ripping up the record books in the 2 classes. So thanks for the data to show this is not a matter of opinion. This is these are facts right now, aren't they?
All-time facts, Weege. Yes, indeed.
Okay, let's wrap up this episode of SMX Insider. Heading to Southwick, we'll show you when and where you can watch. 450s are going to race before the 250s this weekend. That also means they will qualify first as well. So race day live, as always, 1 hour of qualifying coverage. That will start at 10 o'clock Eastern time, Saturday morning. 450s first, then 250s. First moto will be 450s first, then 250s. And the reason why is there is a 1 hour live window on NBC. That'll be the first 450 moto of the day at 1 Eastern. So tell your friends again, maybe they don't watch every week, but man, Southwick is quite the spectacle to see these superstars in these types of conditions. Of course, you can watch everything live all morning and all afternoon on Peacock. And the SMX Video Pass is still 50% off. And look, we're bringing in Tandle there from Norway. We mentioned all the internationals with the Lawrences are back. And how will Jorge Praau do? And honestly, I think there's fans overseas that like the riders that are from the United States as well. So that's SuperMotocross.tv. JT, Southwick. This is how we started the show. We said it might be the most unique event of the year. I guess that's the question. Will it actually look unique in the results? That's the head scratcher.
I don't know. I think we have some pretty established patterns here. And these guys have done such a great job of honing their skill set where they can apply it to anywhere. But on a big picture scale, it is, I think, one of the rounds that stands out as being very different. One of the media for this sport asked Weege, what race should I go to? What's the one race I should step out and attend in 2025? This was your pick. This was your pick. So I think that speaks louder about this race being unique than anything else we could say.
Yeah, I didn't say it was the best. I just said if you want to experience something, this one is not like other races. And you just walk past these baseball fields and an elementary school and the VFW bar, and you're like, wait, there's a dirt bike track here? And then the attitude of the folks and the fans in New England is unlike any other. That's what makes it really cool, too. I'm glad Southwick got back on the schedule. The track was closed for a while. Now it's back. So thanks for watching SMX Insider. We're the Jasons. Tune in for the broadcast or go see the most unique race of the year in person this Saturday.